Hello again. This is John Burroughs, and I'm going to be moving on to podcast number 20, and it's called Teach Your Children Well. Most of you probably recognize the title of this podcast as the title of a song that Crosby, Stills, and Nash did. But I have been racking my brain trying to figure out what type of podcast I can do besides the coronavirus debacle because it's become a debacle. I mean, I never mind. I'm not going to get into it. I said I wouldn't get into it. What I mean by teach your children well is we're all kind of stuck in our homes nowadays. And my kids are grown up, but for you parents that have sons or daughters that are, between 12 and 18 and 12 and 19 and they're stuck at home with you, it's kind of a perfect time to kind of corral them and teach them the things that you've learned in life that hopefully will make them a good citizen when they grow up. A kind, gentle, yet passionate enough citizen to want to have a career, have a family, or not, but take care of themselves and do it in an honorable way. So now you have them in the house, and granted, even when I was growing up, before the internet, before anything else, once we got into school, especially in the middle school time frame, like I said, from 12 to 18, all of a sudden our friends' influence became more important, or we listened to it more than we did our families, our parents. And don't get me wrong, there's no right way to raise your children. If anybody made a lot of mistakes, it was me. Partially because I didn't have a father figure through those years. He was always in the Merchant Marine, and that's another story. But what got me, or gave me, the impetus to do this podcast was my wife and I were channel surfing on the TV, and we ran into one of what I would consider one of the most underrated movies of all time. It got no Golden Globe consideration, it got no Academy Award consideration, yet the message in that movie, or messages, was more important than most movies of our time. I'm not saying it's the greatest movie ever made, but it's certainly a vehicle that you can help educate your kids if you watch it together. And that movie is called Gran Torino, and it was a Clint Eastwood movie. And I'm not going to give away what happens in the movie or anything like that, but there were so many numerous messages there. One, you have someone at 90 years old that still, that late in life, can change who they are just by living life and watching generations change and their neighborhood change and that type of thing. Secondly, um, I've always taken umbrage with the term political correctness, because when I was growing up, especially my first 11 years in New York, there was no political correctness. I mean, you had street corner singing gangs, but you also had cut down wars, and they were well respected among your peers. I mean, even the girls did it, and the idea was it was fun. You got to make fun of each other. You got to laugh. You got to have a competition, and quite frankly, I tell my friends nowadays, all my friends, that if I'm not giving you a hard time, it most likely means I don't like you. It most likely means I could care less. But anyway, in this movie, there are a lot of what will be considered now politically incorrect statements, but that isn't what the movie was about. The movie was about uh, um, the 90-year-old man changing his ways and then discovering a chapter in his life that he never thought would happen. And within that chapter of his life that he never thought would happen, there were so many lessons to be learned. And if you sit down and watch that with your kids, it's a great vehicle to take the time to explain what's happening. You know, I can't remember who we were with, but it was my wife and I and another couple. I can't remember. But we were watching the movie at home, and the fact that there was a lot of quote unquote politically incorrect statements in there, uh, these people were what I would call very politically correct. And they did not know how to view the film without having that in the back of their mind. And therefore, the messages in there completely flew right over the top of their head. So, basically, what this podcast is about is take advantage of the time you have with your children. I wish I could have done things differently and had this opportunity to not only do things differently, but teach them in a way that I didn't before, because I made a lot of mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes, but I made a lot of them. So that's one movie I can think of. I'm sure if you stretch your memory, you can find many movies that have great social messages that your children need to learn. Also, recently, we've been playing a game called Parcheesi. Most of you in the older generation probably know what it is. And when we start playing that, we start kidding with each other and arguing with each other that we're cheating and all this stuff. And it's really kind of fun because it takes away from the everyday mundane thing you have to do when you're locked up inside of your house and you're experiencing cabin fever. But here is an opportunity to take the children of today, the young teenagers and young adults that are going to be the leaders of tomorrow, and have them pretty much as a captured audience. Now, don't get me wrong, they can be distracted by the internet. They might not even realize you're in the room. They might not even want to do it. But if you can get them down to sit and watch these type of movies and then make comments and discuss it, it will happen. Because the good movies with the right messages, it isn't what's said, it's the message that is being sent. And Gran Torino especially sends a beautiful but tragic message. Anyway, I just wanted to bring that up because as we were watching that movie last night, my wife and I were laughing at times at the so-called politically incorrect moments, and we were also fell silent at the times we knew what was going to happen because we had seen it before. In fact, anytime I run across it on TV, I have the DVD, but anytime I run across it on TV, I watch it. I must have seen it 7 times. There are a lot of movies out there like that. There are a lot of songs out there like that. There's a lot of time that you can become an influence on your children. So when they go back to school and when they start influencing, hopefully they'll seek out the people that you taught them to seek out. But if not, if that influence is, they don't seek those type of people out and influences come their way that are detrimental to their growth, hopefully they'll recognize that and try to avoid it. No guarantees, but it was something I wanted to bring to everyone's attention. Okay, I didn't intend to make this too long. It was because of the movie. And so I'm going to sign off. This is John Burroughs signing off. I hope you all stay safe and remember our first responders and everyone involved with fighting this terrible disease. Thanks once again, John Burroughs. Bye.